Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Today, I want to talk a little bit about why I do what I do. Some of you know my story, how I started with Candida overgrowth, and that led to me helping people with Candida. And now I help women on restricted diets learn to love their food so they can lose their symptoms and get their lives back. And I've changed a little bit of my approach, and I wanted to talk about why. So those of you who've been following me for a while know this, but for those of you who don't, I'm Ricki Heller from rickiheller.com. And as I said, I worked for a long time exclusively with people who dealt with Candida overgrowth. And now I'm working with all kinds of women around restricted diets. And so for myself, a lot of the reason why I started with Candida was because I myself had Candida overgrowth. But I want to tell you what sort of shifted for me that pushed me in a slightly different direction. So some of you know that my mom had type 2 diabetes, and she dealt with this through pretty much all of her adult life. And in the years before she died, so when she died very young at 62, which is kind of shocking to me now. Hey there. And she spent the last 4 months of her life in hospital. And I was very fortunate to be able to be there with her at the time. I was teaching college full time, and we got summers off, and it turned out she was in the hospital from May till August 19th, and I was able to be there, which was an amazing gift for me to be able to spend that time with her. But years before that, because she struggled her whole life, and really she died from complications of diabetes. So because she couldn't stop eating the sweet things and couldn't stop eating all the foods that literally fed her diabetes. But about 10 years before that, she got a new family doctor. And this family doctor, as it turns out, when in Canada anyway, I don't know about elsewhere, but when they study family medicine, they always do, I think it's like 4 years of their family practice, or maybe it's the opposite, 1 year of family practice, and then 4 years of their specialty. And this particular family doctor decided she was going to go into psychiatry after family medicine. So my mom saw her as a family doctor, but she had that sort of psychological bent, right? She began to delve into what was going on with my mom personally. And she spent time with her and she talked to her. And it was the first time in my mom's life, and I've said this before, I believe my mother was clinically depressed, but she didn't know it and nobody diagnosed her. So finally, she had this doctor. I'm going to cry every time I think of it. She had this doctor who took an interest in her and asked her what was going on with her and got her to talk about her feelings and what was happening inside. And something miraculous happened. The more my mother focused on dealing with her own emotions around food, the less she ate her feelings. So if something bad was happening, lucky for her, she had this doctor to talk to. And there was a short period for like a year where my mom was just flourishing, and she started losing weight, and it didn't seem like an effort for her, and she was getting so much better. And then the doctor's general practice ended, and she went off somewhere to study psychiatry, but it meant that she left Montreal, where my mom lived. So my mother was given another family doctor who didn't care about those things and just said, eat this, don't eat this, eat this, don't eat this. And of course, she wasn't able to maintain that by herself. So she had this relapse and she ended up going back to her old ways of eating. And eventually, like I said, 10 years later, she died. And for me, in studying, over the years, I thought, what was it that made that major difference for my mother? And it was getting to know the reasons behind the overeating. Because let's face it, all of us who have to be on a restricted diet, whether you're on a restricted diet for Candida, or whether you're on a restricted diet for Lyme disease, or arthritis, or celiac, or just because you want to be healthy and you're cutting out the foods you know are unhealthy but are so prevalent in our society, right? Whatever the reason, we know what we're supposed to eat. A doctor can hand you the list of yes and no foods, or your naturopath can hand you the list of yes and no foods. You know what to eat. Why don't you eat it? That is the question. And over the years, what I've discovered is what it boils down to are several factors that really start up here. It's the way our brains are wired, the way habits work in our lives, the subconscious at play, all the things that most of us don't look at. And so that's when I decided I had to switch gears. And instead of focusing on the Candida diet and telling people what they should eat for Candida and seeing so many people slip up over time, I really wanted to focus on this because I didn't want what happened to my mom to happen to other people I care about and my clients. And I've come to believe really strongly that how we think, how we behave, how we feel is really those are the critical factors to our success in our diet. It has less to do with the food and more to do with the person and the person's brain. And so now what I focus on is how do we change those thoughts and feelings so that we can be successful on the diet? How do we change those habitual behaviors that maybe sometimes we've been doing for decades so that we can be successful on the diet? And that is really the key to people's success. So really it all started with my mom and thinking about my mom, and then also observing my own success with the diet and what had changed for me. And what's interesting in my case, you know, as you know, I've been eating this way for 20 years now, but it wasn't until I'm going to say the last 5 years that I really dug deep into the causes of emotional eating. And that's when we eat when we're stressed, or we eat when we're angry, or we eat when we're scared, or we feel anxious. So we eat our feelings. You probably heard that expression before. And that has made a huge difference to my health. So even though my diet hasn't changed, the way I deal with the emotional aspect of my eating has had a profound effect on my health and my symptoms and has made a difference to me after 20 years. So it can always happen when you approach this in a slightly different way. It doesn't matter how long you've been eating unhealthy or healthy, you can always improve when you look at the factors beneath the surface and add those to your arsenal of tools and strategies and techniques and all that. So I hope that is useful. I thought it might be nice for you guys to know kind of what is my motivation behind all of this. And as I said, I mean, if it was just the diet that we needed, I guess we'd all be better by now, right? So clearly there's so much more going on. I'd love to hear from you. Please let me know your thoughts, your comments, your questions. You can just leave them below. And if you would like to know more and follow me regularly on my newsletter, I post an email newsletter every single week on Sundays. You can just go to rickiheller.com/subscribe and you will be able to follow me there. All right, everybody, I hope you have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Today I got it right. It is Friday. And I will see you again next week. Bye for now.